Welcome to Tales by Imon. Tonight's story is an original production, presented as a series of personal audio logs. What you are about to hear is the first recording. Tape 1. Okay, it's on. The recorder is on. My name is Ethan Hayes, and this is... I guess this is log number 1. It's October 14th. The time is just after 11 p.m. I feel ridiculous doing this, talking to myself in an empty apartment. But Dr. Sterling suggested it. She said that documenting things, creating a concrete record, might help me sort things out. She thinks it's just the stress of the move, the new job, everything. I want to believe her. I really do. But the problem with just being stressed is that stress doesn't move things. It doesn't delete files. It doesn't whisper your name from a dark corner of a room that you know, for a fact, is empty. I moved to Northwood Creek 3 months ago. It was supposed to be a fresh start. Leave the chaos of New York City behind, you know? I'm a remote data analyst for a tech firm, so I can work from anywhere. This town seemed perfect. Quiet, scenic, nestled in the mountains of Oregon. The apartment complex, Cedar Ridge, is new. I'm the first person to live in this unit, number 3B. Top floor. Corner unit. Lots of natural light, brand new appliances, that new paint and sawdust smell that's supposed to feel like a blank canvas. For the first 2 months, it was exactly that. It was peaceful. I set up my home office. I bought a ridiculously oversized couch. I even started hiking on the weekends. I was sleeping better than I had in years. And then, it started. Small things at first. Things you'd easily dismiss. I'd come back from a run and the TV remote would be on the kitchen counter. I chalk it up to being absent-minded. I live alone. Who else could have moved it? So, I must have. Simple. Then I'd find a cabinet door left wide open. The one I know I closed because it has a squeaky hinge that I have to push twice. Weird, but okay. Maybe I was in a hurry. My mind was playing tricks on me. That's what I told myself. That's the same, rational explanation. But last week it got specific. I have this routine. It's almost a compulsion. When I walk in the door, the very first thing I do is take off my keys and slap them onto the magnetic key holder by the door. Every single time. It's muscle memory. On Tuesday, I came home from the grocery store, arms full of bags. I know I put my keys on the holder. I remember the satisfying clack they made against the magnet. I put everything away, made dinner, watched some TV. The next morning, I couldn't find my keys. I looked everywhere. On the counter, in my jacket pockets, under the couch cushions. I spent 30 minutes tearing this tiny apartment apart. I was about to call the building manager for a spare when I opened the freezer to get some ice for my coffee. And there they were, sitting right on top of a bag of frozen peas. My key ring, with the little silver compass charm my sister gave me, was frosted over. There is absolutely no universe in which I would ever, for any reason, put my keys in the freezer. It's not just unlikely, it's impossible. My brain doesn't work that way. That was the first time I felt a real, cold spike of fear. It wasn't just a feeling of being forgetful anymore. It was a feeling of being violated. Like someone was in my space, my home, playing these little games with me. I changed the lock on the door that afternoon. The building has electronic key fobs, but my door has a standard deadbolt too. I paid a locksmith $200 to install a new, high-security one. It felt like an overreaction, but it was the only thing that let me sleep that night. The next couple of days were quiet. Nothing out of place. I started to relax. I told myself maybe it was a one-time thing. Maybe I was so tired from work that I did, somehow, put my keys in the freezer and just completely blocked it out. A brain fart. A major, reality-bending brain fart, but a brain fart nonetheless. It was easier to believe that than the alternative. But then, tonight happened. That's why I'm making this recording. I finished work around 7. I was working on a big data migration project. Hours of just staring at code and spreadsheets. My eyes were burning. I closed my laptop, shut down my monitors. I have a 2-monitor setup, and I always power them down completely. I'm meticulous about it. I went into the living room, made a sandwich, and put on a podcast. The apartment was silent except for the voices from my headphones. Around 10 p.m., I went back into my office to grab my water bottle. And I heard it. A sound. It was coming from my computer speakers. The ones I had turned off. It was faint, incredibly faint. A soft, whispering static. At first, I thought it might be electrical interference. I unplugged the speakers from the wall. The sound continued for another 2 or 3 seconds, then faded out, like a dying breath. That's not possible. There was no power going to them. I stood there in the dark, my heart hammering against my ribs. The room was cold, colder than the rest of the apartment. I flicked on the light. Everything was exactly as I had left it. My chair was pushed in. The notebooks on my desk were neatly stacked. My hands were shaking, but my job, my whole career, is based on logic. There had to be an explanation. Residual power in the capacitors? Maybe. A short circuit? Possible. I plugged the speakers back in. Nothing. I powered on my computer. Everything booted up normally. No errors, no pop-ups. I ran a full system diagnostic. Nothing. I ran a malware scan. Clean. It's a closed system, heavily firewalled by my company. The chances of a remote intrusion are almost zero. I was about to give up, to chalk it up to another freak occurrence, another sign that I was losing my mind. But then I saw it. In my system's temporary files folder. It's a folder that's usually filled with junk files, things programs create and then delete. I empty it every few days. I had emptied it this morning, but there was a new file in there. A single audio file. The file name was just a random string of numbers and letters. ZXCVBNM14. It was encrypted. Heavily encrypted. But the part that made all the blood drain from my face was the timestamp. The file was created at 10:03 p.m. The exact time I had walked into the office and heard the whispering. Someone or something created a file on my computer from inside my system while it was powered down. An encrypted audio file that appeared at the same moment I heard a sound from speakers that had no power. I don't know what's on it. I can't open it. I've tried. Every decryption key I can think of has failed. I've copied it to a secure external drive, and I've deleted the original. I feel like I shouldn't have it on my main system. So that's where I am now. Sitting here, talking into my phone. I'm looking at the door to my apartment. The new deadbolt is locked. The security chain is on. But I've never felt less safe. It doesn't feel like someone is trying to break in. It feels like they're already here. I don't know what happens next. But I'm going to keep this recorder running. If anything else happens, anything at all, I'll have a record. This is Ethan Hayes. Signing off for now. This is Ethan Hayes. Log number 2. October 15th. It's almost 6 a.m. I haven't slept. Not really. I kept the lights on all night. I sat on that oversized couch I was once so proud of, staring at my front door, listening. Every time the refrigerator kicked on, I flinched. The groan of the pipes in the walls sounded like footsteps. The wind outside sounded like whispering. After what happened last night, after that file, every normal sound in this apartment has become a threat. My home, this brand new, clean, empty space, feels contaminated. This morning, I spent an hour trying to decrypt that file again. I threw everything I had at it. I wrote a custom brute force script to cycle through millions of potential keys per second. I ran it through 3 different decryption software suites. Nothing. It's not just encrypted, it's locked down like it's a state secret. The file ZXCVBNM14 just sits on my external drive, a tiny 1 kilobyte block of data that makes no sense. It's a digital ghost. A ghost that was born inside my computer while it was turned off. Around 8 a.m., I couldn't take the silence anymore. I had to talk to someone. A real person. I called my best friend, Mark, back in New York. Mark's a software engineer. He's even more logical than I am. If anyone could give me a rational explanation, it was him. I told him everything. About the keys in the freezer, the sound from the speakers, and the encrypted file. I listened to myself as I spoke, and I heard how it sounded. Crazy. I sounded like a man unraveling. Mark was quiet for a long time after I finished. Then he said, "Dude, you need a vacation." That was his answer. A vacation. He suggested a power surge could have sent a jolt to the speaker's capacitors, causing the sound. He said a random software glitch during shutdown could have created a corrupted, unreadable temp file. As for the keys, you were exhausted, Ethan. The move, the new job, you just did something weird and don't remember. He was trying to help. He was being a good friend, offering the simplest, most logical explanations. But he wasn't here. He didn't feel the cold in that room. He didn't see the file's timestamp. I tried to explain how impossible it all was, but I could hear the skepticism in his voice. "Just get some sleep, man," he said before hanging up. and maybe lay off the caffeine. I hung up feeling worse, more isolated than ever. If my best friend, a tech genius, thinks I'm just overworked, then what hope do I have? It proved what I feared. I'm on my own in this. The call did one good thing though. It spurred me into action. If no one was going to believe me, I needed proof. Hard proof. I went online and ordered 2 high-definition smart cameras with motion detection and night vision. One for my living room, pointing at the front door, and one for my office, pointing directly at my computer setup. They offered same-day delivery. They arrived 3 hours ago. Setting them up was the first time I felt a sliver of control all day. I positioned the office camera on a bookshelf, giving it a clear view of my desk, my chair, and the doorway. I linked them to a secure cloud server, completely separate from my personal computer, and enabled motion-activated recording alerts directly to my phone. Now, if a mouse breathes too loudly in here, I'll know. I'll have a video of it. After they were installed, I tried to work. I had a deadline, but I couldn't focus. I kept glancing at the live feed on my phone. The empty chair. The still room. It felt like I was watching a time bomb. Around 4 p.m., I was on a conference call with my project manager, going over some numbers. I was sharing my screen, pointing out data points. I had the office camera feed open in a small window in the corner of my secondary monitor, just for peace of mind. And that's when I saw it. It was in the reflection on the dark screen of my powered-off main monitor. For just a split second, a shape. Behind me. A tall, thin silhouette standing in the doorway of my office. It was blurred, indistinct, like a smudge on a lens, but it was there. My blood turned to ice. I whipped my head around so fast I nearly pulled a muscle in my neck. Nothing. The doorway was empty. The apartment was silent, except for my manager's voice droning on through my headset. Ethan? You still with me? Did you see the anomaly in the Q3 data? I stammered something, an apology, said I got distracted. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my ears. As soon as the call ended, I grabbed my phone and scrubbed back through the camera footage. I found the exact moment. 4:17 p.m. I watched the video. There I was, sitting at my desk. I turned my head. And right there, at the exact second I turned, the video feed glitched. For a single frame, maybe less, the image dissolved into a mess of green and purple pixels. A digital scramble. And then it was back to normal. A perfect, clear view of an empty doorway. It recorded a glitch, a data corruption, at the precise moment I saw the reflection. It's too much of a coincidence. It's impossible. It feels like, whatever this is, it knows I'm watching. It's hiding in the blind spots, hiding in the glitches. I had to get out. I couldn't breathe. I grabbed my jacket and practically ran out of the apartment. In the hallway, I almost collided with my next-door neighbor, Mr. Gable. He's an older guy, lives alone in 3A. He always looks a little disheveled, and he has this habit of staring at you for a beat too long before speaking. In a hurry, son? He asked, his voice raspy. I just nodded, trying to get past him. He didn't move. He just looked at my door, then back at me. A strange little smile touched his lips. New locks, he observed. Good idea. The walls in this place, they're thin. You'd be surprised what they pick up. And then he just shuffled into his apartment and closed the door, leaving me standing there in the hallway, my skin crawling. I walked for an hour, just trying to clear my head. But his words echoed in my mind. You'd be surprised what they pick up. When I finally got back, I came straight to my office. I couldn't look at the chair, at the monitor. All I could think about was the file. The original piece of the puzzle. I knew I couldn't decrypt it, but maybe I could analyze it in a different way. Instead of trying to unlock the content, I decided to analyze the structure of the container itself. I ran a deep structural analysis, a program that maps out the data bit by bit to see how it's constructed. Most of the file was a chaotic, indecipherable wall of code. But buried deep inside, in one tiny fragment, the program found something. A single, unencrypted data packet. It was less than a second of audio. My hands were trembling as I isolated it and converted it into a playable format. I put on my headphones, turned the volume down low, and I clicked play. It wasn't a whisper. It wasn't static. It was a sound I knew, but it was wrong. Horribly wrong. It was the sound of a music box. A tinny, delicate melody, playing just a few notes. But it was distorted. The notes were slightly off-key, dragging and slowing down, like the gears of the music box were grinding through sand. It was the saddest, most unsettling sound I've ever heard. A child's lullaby, twisted into a funeral dirge. Where did it come from? And what in God's name is in the rest of that file? This isn't a glitch. This isn't stress. Something is in here with me. And now I have a piece of its voice. Log number 3. Ethan Hayes. October 16th. Time, irrelevant. I've spent the last 6 hours listening to that sound. That tiny, 1-second fragment of a broken lullaby. I have it looping through my headphones. I keep thinking if I listen enough, I'll find something hidden in the noise. A voice, a breath, another instrument. But there's nothing. Just those 5 corrupted notes, playing over and over, burrowing into my brain. The sound is more than just unsettling. It feels ancient. It feels sad. And that's what scares me the most. My logical mind is screaming at me to find an origin for the melody. I spent hours on websites dedicated to identifying tunes, on forums for antique music box collectors. I played the clip into my phone's microphone, hoping an app could recognize it. Nothing. It's not a known lullaby. It's not from any popular toy. It's a melody that, as far as the internet is concerned, does not exist. It's a song for no one. Frustrated, I turned my attention back to the source. My computer. The idea that something could create a file on my machine while it was off. It violates every principle of computer science I know. The only explanation is a piece of hidden hardware. Something parasitic, with its own power source, wired directly into my motherboard. So, I did the only thing I could. I performed an autopsy. I unplugged everything, laid the tower on its side on my dining table, and, with my precision toolkit, I opened it up. For 2 hours, I was just a data analyst again. I was in my element. I checked every capacitor, every heatsink. I removed the RAM sticks and examined the contacts. I took out my graphics card, my solid-state drives. I scrutinized the motherboard under a magnifying glass, searching for any non-standard soldering, any microchip that wasn't on the manufacturer's schematic. My machine is a high-end, custom build. I know every component in it like the back of my hand. And there was nothing. No foreign hardware. No modifications. It was perfectly, terrifyingly clean. I put it all back together, and the fear returned, colder this time. The violation wasn't physical. It was somewhere deeper. In the code. In the electricity. In the air itself. I sat back in my office chair, defeated. The room felt heavy, watchful. My eyes drifted to the new security camera on the bookshelf, its little blue on light a small comfort. But I knew it was useless. It sees what's there, but it can't see what's inside the wires. It can't see the ghost in my machine. And then I heard it again. Not in my headphones. This time, it was in the room with me. The music box. Faint. So faint I thought I was imagining it. That same broken, dragging melody. It wasn't coming from the speakers. It was coming from above. I held my breath, straining to hear. It was coming from the air vent in the ceiling. The melody played its 5-note tune twice, then faded into silence. The silence it left behind was louder than the sound itself. I was on my feet, my chair clattering against the floor. I stared up at the simple, slatted metal vent cover. My heart was a frantic drum against my ribs. It's one thing to hear it from a file I can contain, a thing I can isolate and delete. It's another to hear it leaking into my world, playing from a dark hole in my ceiling. I dragged my desk chair under the vent and stood on it, my hands shaking. I could feel a cool draft coming from the vent, carrying the scent of dust and something else, something old and metallic. I was about to reach up and try to pull the cover off when my eyes caught something on the floor, directly below the vent. Something small and dark against the pale wood laminate. I climbed down and knelt. It was a gear. A tiny, rusted cog, no bigger than my fingernail. It looked ancient, like something you'd find in the workings of a grandfather clock or a music box. It wasn't here before. I had vacuumed this morning. I would have seen it. I would have heard it. It's impossible. How could a solid metal object just appear? Did it fall out of the vent? I picked it up. It felt cold and heavy in my palm. This was real. A physical object. A piece of evidence that connected the impossible digital event to the physical space of my apartment. My mind was racing. The vent. Mr. Gable's words came rushing back. The walls in this place, they're thin. You'd be surprised what they pick up. The vents connect the apartments. Was he the source? Was this some elaborate, cruel prank? But how? The encrypted file, the reflection, the glitch. It's too complex for some old man. I suddenly had a new direction. My investigation had been focused on the how. Now I needed to focus on the where. What was this place? I mean, what was it before it was the Cedar Ridge apartment complex? I grabbed my laptop and sat on the floor, the rusty gear sitting on the desk in front of me like a sacred relic. I started searching. Cedar Ridge Northwood Creek land history. Northwood Creek construction records. It took me less than 30 minutes to find it, buried in the digital archives of the local county records. The Cedar Ridge complex was built 2 years ago, and the land it was built on was, until then, an overgrown, empty lot. A lot that had been empty since 1968. Because in 1968, the building that stood here burned to the ground in a catastrophic fire. It was a place called the Northwood Children's Home, an orphanage. The fire claimed the lives of 17 children and 2 staff members. My body went cold. An orphanage. A music box. The pieces were clicking into place in the most horrible way imaginable. I kept digging, searching for news articles about the fire. I found a link to the digital archives of the old Northwood Chronicle. The headline read, "Tragedy at Northwood. Fire destroys children's home. Many feared lost." The article was yellowed and grainy, but readable. It described a desperate scene, a fire that started in the middle of the night, trapping the children in their dormitory. My eyes scanned the page, drinking in the horrifying details, until they landed on a black and white photograph at the bottom of the article. The caption read, "Home Director Arthur Gable surveys the ruins." The picture showed a tall, gaunt man in a dark suit standing in front of the blackened shell of the building. His face was grim, shadowed by a hat. But even in the poor quality of the 60-year-old photograph, there was something familiar about his features. About his posture. With trembling hands, I zoomed in. I enhanced the image as much as I could, clarifying the pixels. My breath caught in my throat. It wasn't a perfect match. Age had softened the lines, his hair was gone, his shoulders were stooped now. But it was him. The eyes. Those same dark, deep-set eyes that had watched me in the hallway. The man in the photograph, Arthur Gable, was a younger version of my neighbor. Mr. Gable. It can't be. How can it be? He'd have to be in his 90s. Is it his father? A relative? Or is my neighbor the same man who ran an orphanage on this very spot? A home that ended in fire and death? The man who told me the walls could hear everything. Log number 4. Ethan Hayes. October 17th. I'm sitting in the dark. The only light is from my monitor, reflecting in my wide-open eyes. The old newspaper photo is still on the screen. Arthur Gable. My neighbor. For the last hour, I've just been staring at the wall. The wall that separates my living room from his. It's just drywall and insulation. A few inches of material is all that separates me from a man who may have presided over the deaths of 17 children. I feel like I can hear him breathing through it. My skin is crawling with a constant, low-grade terror. My first instinct was denial. It's a common name. It's a coincidence. But the location, the face, it's too much to be a coincidence. My data-driven brain needed facts. Proof. So I did what I do best. I started digging. I ran a comprehensive background search on Arthur Gable, born between 1930 and 1940, with connections to Northwood Creek, Oregon. The digital world, for the most part, has forgotten him. There are no social media profiles, no recent photos, no employment records past the 1970s. He's a ghost in the modern world. But ghosts leave traces. I found him in the county property records. Apartment 3A, Cedar Ridge Complex. Owner, A. Gable. The purchase was made with cash 2 years ago, right when the building opened. I cross-referenced the deed with public voter registration archives. Arthur Gable, date of birth, November 2nd, 1932. That would make him 92 years old. The right age. The exact right age. Then I found another hit, a footnote in a different newspaper article from a month after the fire. It mentioned that the home's director, Arthur Gable, was formally questioned by police regarding lax safety standards at the home, but no charges were ever filed. He was questioned. He was there. And then he seemingly vanished from public life for 50 years, only to reappear and buy an apartment built on the ashes of his failed orphanage. It's him. I know it is. And he's living right next to me. The knowledge has changed the very air in my apartment. The building is no longer just a place with a tragic history. It's an active crime scene, and I'm living next to the prime suspect. I've started to hear things. Or maybe I'm just listening properly for the first time. All day, there has been a faint sound from his apartment. It's not the TV, or music, or talking. It's a quiet, rhythmic scraping. A dry, methodical sound, like sandpaper on old wood or a chisel against stone. It goes on for a few minutes, then stops. An hour later, it starts again. What is he doing in there? My paranoia is at war with my curiosity. I need to know what's happening on the other side of that wall. I looked up professional listening devices, parabolic mics, contact microphones. I can have one delivered by tomorrow. But I can't wait until tomorrow. The scraping started again 10 minutes ago, and this time it sounds closer. I'm in my office, and the sound seems to be coming from the wall behind my desk. I'm going to do something stupid. I have an audio analytics app on my phone, one I use for work to test speaker frequencies. It has a feature that can amplify and visualize sound waves. It's not meant for this, but it's all I have right now. I'm going to press the phone's microphone directly against the wall. I have to know. Okay, I'm doing it now. I'm holding my breath. The phone is flush against the drywall. The app's visualizer is jumping. The scraping sound is much louder now, amplified through the microphone. It's a grating, uneven sound. Metal on wood. That's what it sounds like. A slow, deliberate scraping. It makes the hairs on my arms stand up. Who scrapes something in the middle of the night? The rhythm is hypnotic. Scrape. Pause. Scrape. Pause. It's like he's trying to uncover something. Or carve something. What is he doing? Wait. It stopped. Complete silence. Did he hear me? My heart is hammering. I'm not breathing. The app's visualizer is a flat line. Silence. Just the low hum of my own electronics. I should move. I should take the phone away from the wall. But I'm frozen. Oh my God. There's a new sound. It's not the scraping. It's the music box. It's coming through the wall. Through the phone. But it's not the distorted, broken version from the file. This is clean. Perfectly clear. Each note is pristine and sharp, played with a slow, mournful precision. It's the same melody, but whole. Complete. It's so much worse this way. It's playing from a real physical music box, right now, just a few inches away from me, in his apartment. The tune plays through once, a haunting little refrain that echoes in the space between my headphones. The music box clicks off. The silence returns, for 1 second, 2 seconds. Then, a voice. A voice so close, so clear through the phone's amplifier. It sounds like he's whispering directly into my ear. It's the raspy, dry voice from the hallway. Mr. Gable. He speaks, and the world stops. She's asking for you, Mr. Hayes. Log number 5. He knows. Oh God, he knows I was listening. He knows my name. She's asking for you, Mr. Hayes. The words are branded into my brain. As soon as I heard his voice, I ripped the phone from the wall and scrambled backwards, falling over my own feet. I lay on the floor for a second, paralyzed, the silence from the other side of the wall more terrifying than any sound. This isn't a game. This isn't some weird, unexplained phenomenon. I am being targeted. My only thought was, run. I didn't care where. A motel. My car. Anywhere but here. I lunged for my backpack, stuffing my laptop inside with clumsy, shaking hands. The external drive with the file, my wallet, my phone. I grabbed the little rusted gear off my desk and shoved it in my pocket, not knowing why. It felt important. A piece of the puzzle. My hand was on the deadbolt of my front door. I was seconds from freedom. And then I heard it. A sound from the hallway, right outside my door. A slow, deliberate scrape. The same metallic scraping on wood sound I'd heard through the wall. He wasn't in his apartment anymore. He was outside my door. Scrape. Pause. Scrape. He was marking my door, or trying to get in. I backed away, my breath catching in my throat, my escape route cut off. I was trapped. As I stood there, frozen in the middle of my living room, a new sound began. It was the music box. The clear, pristine, heartbreaking melody. But it wasn't coming from the hallway. And it wasn't coming from Gable's apartment. It was coming from inside my own apartment. From down the short hallway. From my bedroom. I'm now locked in my office. I've wedged my chair under the doorknob. It's a flimsy defense, I know, but it's all I have. The scraping outside the front door has stopped. The music box in my bedroom has gone silent. But the silence is worse. It's an expectant silence. A waiting silence. I'm caught in a trap, and the walls are closing in. Gable's words keep replaying in my head. She's asking for you. She. Not him. He's a messenger. Or a gatekeeper. Who is she? I have to know. My terror is a physical thing, a weight on my chest, but my analytical mind is clinging to that one question as a lifeline. If I can understand who she is, maybe I can understand what's happening to me. I powered on my laptop, my fingers flying across the keyboard, my eyes scanning the screen for the archives I'd found earlier. The Northwood Children's Home. The fire. The victims. I had only skimmed the names before. Now I read them one by one. I was looking for a detail, a story, anything that stood out. And then I found it. A follow-up article written a week after the fire, focusing on the human interest side of the tragedy. It was a profile of one of the victims. A 12-year-old girl named Lillian, known as Lily. The article described her as a quiet, withdrawn child who rarely spoke. It said she was inseparable from a small, wooden music box her father had made for her before he died. The other children would often hear her playing its sad little tune from her corner of the dormitory. The article even included a small, grainy class photo. I zoomed in, and my blood ran cold. A small girl with large, dark eyes stared back at me from the past. In her lap, she was clutching a small, dark object. A music box. It was her. It had to be. Lily. She's asking for you, Mr. Hayes. It's her ghost. Her something. And Gable is, what? Her conduit. Her protector? My mind reeled with the impossible implications. I was staring at the black and white face of this long-dead child on my monitor when my phone buzzed on the desk beside me. I flinched, nearly screaming. It was a notification from the security camera app. The living room camera. But the notification banner wasn't the standard motion detected. It was a single, chilling word. Found. My hands were trembling so violently, I could barely unlock the phone. I opened the app and pulled up the live feed from the living room camera. The room was just as I had left it. Empty, still, steeped in shadow. I stared, my heart pounding, looking for any sign of movement. Then I saw it. At the very bottom of the frame, in the center of the image, was a small, dark object that hadn't been there before. As if it had been placed there deliberately, an offering to the camera's lens. It was the small, rusted gear. The gear that I had put in my pocket. The gear that was still, at this very moment, digging into my thigh from inside my jeans. I frantically checked my pocket. It was empty. It's impossible. It can't be. I watched the live feed, paralyzed, my mind refusing to process what I was seeing. And as I stared at the impossible gear on my monitor, a new icon blinked into existence on my laptop's desktop. No cryptic string of numbers this time. This was a direct message. A new audio file had just appeared out of thin air. The file name was lily.wave. Log number 6. My name is Ethan Hayes. I'm still locked in my office. The chair is still wedged under the knob. But the fear, it's changed. It's no longer a blind, frantic panic. It's something colder, heavier. A dread that has weight and shape. On my desktop, the file lily.wave has been sitting there for what feels like an eternity. A dare. A summons. For 10 minutes, I just stared at it. Every rational part of my brain, the part that analyzes data and solves problems, screamed at me not to open it. But my curiosity, and a terrifying new feeling that I am somehow involved in this, won out. I have to know. I have to understand what it wants from me. I put on my best studio headphones, the kind that block out the entire world. If I was going to listen to this, I didn't want the sound contaminated by the groans of the building or the whisper of the vents. I wanted to hear it in its purest form. I took a deep, shuddering breath, my mouse cursor hovering over the icon. And I clicked. It began with the music box. The clear, clean version I heard through the wall. It played its sad, 5-note melody through one full cycle. It was hauntingly beautiful. Then, a new sound faded in beneath the tinkling notes. A sound that made my blood run cold. It was a little girl, humming along to the tune. Her voice was soft, airy, and innocent. It was Lily. I knew it instinctively. She was humming her song. And for a moment, it was just a memory. A sad, beautiful memory. Then, a man's voice shattered the peace. A voice full of anger and gravel. A younger, more vital version of the voice I heard from the hallway. It was Arthur Gable. "Lillian," he barked. "Put that infernal thing away. Now." The humming stopped instantly. There was a sound of a small gasp, then a wooden clatter, like the music box being dropped or knocked onto a hardwood floor. The tinkling notes died with a discordant jangle. The recording was filled with a new sound. The sound of a little girl trying and failing to hold back tears. Soft, choked sobs. The recording ended. I ripped the headphones from my head, my chest tight. My hands were clenched into fists. This wasn't a ghostly threat. It was an echo of pain. A piece of the past, delivered directly to my desktop. She wasn't trying to scare me. She was showing me what he did, what he was like. This changes everything. My fear for myself is still there, screaming in the back of my mind, but it's now mixed with a hot surge of anger towards Gable and a profound, aching sorrow for this little girl. As I sat there, trying to process it, the atmosphere in the room shifted. The oppressive, malevolent feeling was gone, replaced by a deep, chilling cold. It felt mournful, like the room itself was grieving. I was no longer just a target. I was an audience, a witness, and the show was not over. A new icon blinked into existence on my screen. An image file this time. Northwood_1967.jpg. My heart hammered. I opened it. It was a class photo. The same group of children from the newspaper archive, but the image was perfectly clear, as if scanned from the original negative. The faces were no longer blurry smudges. They were individuals. Children with hopeful, or sad, or mischievous eyes. All of them lost to the fire a year after this photo was taken. And then, the impossible happened. My mouse cursor, a small white arrow on the screen, began to move. It wasn't drifting. It was moving with smooth, deliberate intent. I wasn't touching the mouse. It slid across the faces of the smiling children, a ghostly finger pointing through time. It stopped, and drew a slow, perfect circle around the face of the little girl with the dark, haunted eyes. Lily. She was holding her music box. I watched, mesmerized and terrified. The cursor hovered over her face for a moment, as if paying its respects, and then it moved again. It drifted towards the back of the group, to the edge of the photograph where the shadows were deepest. It stopped on a boy standing slightly apart from the others. He wasn't looking at the camera. His head was turned slightly, and he seemed to be looking at Lily. His expression was one of fear. The cursor drew another slow circle around his face. Who was he? I didn't have time to wonder. As soon as the second circle was complete, a new file appeared next to the image. A plain text file. The file name made my breath catch. help_.txt. With a trembling hand, I guided the now stationary cursor to the file and double-clicked. The text file opened. It was a blank white page with a single word typed in the center. Daniel. Who is Daniel? Another ghost. Another victim. Lily isn't just haunting me. She isn't just asking for help for herself. She's pointing me to someone else. Another child in that photo. Another soul trapped in this place. The mystery isn't just about a girl and her music box anymore. It's bigger, and I'm somehow standing right in the middle of it. Log number 7. I think that's the number. The hours are bleeding into each other. Daniel. The name is just sitting there on my screen, a single word that has cracked this whole thing wide open. I'm not just being haunted. I'm being recruited. This ghost, this sad little girl named Lily, isn't just showing me her pain. She's asking me to intervene in someone else's. Help_him. The responsibility is crushing. How am I, a data analyst locked in his office, supposed to help a ghost? My first step, as always, was to search for data. I went back to the fire archives, this time searching specifically for Daniel. It didn't take long to find him. Daniel Miller, age 13. His name was on the official list of the deceased. Just another tragic statistic. But I kept digging, scrolling through microfiche copies of old police reports and witness statements. I found a small, almost insignificant detail in a detective's preliminary notes. On the first day of the investigation, Daniel Miller was not listed as a victim. He was listed as a potential runaway, a person of interest. The notes mentioned he was a known troublemaker at the home, with a history of disciplinary actions for fighting and defiance. The report was amended 2 days later when his body was positively identified among the ruins. A troublemaker. A fighter. That detail didn't fit with the terrified face I saw in the photograph. But as I thought about it, my eyes drifted back to the image file, Northwood_1967.jpg, still open on my desktop. I stared at the photo of Daniel, his watchful, fearful expression. As I watched, the screen flickered once, like a faulty fluorescent light. The photo glitched. For a single, horrifying second, the image changed. All the other children faded into a gray, indistinct blur, leaving only Lily and Daniel in sharp, vivid focus. The image flickered again, and Daniel's face, it twisted. The fear was gone, replaced by an expression of absolute, incandescent rage. His mouth was open in a silent, agonized scream, his eyes black pits of fury. Then, just as quickly as it appeared, it was gone. The photo snapped back to normal. I shoved my chair back, a strangled cry caught in my throat. What was that? Was that his true face? Not a victim, but something else? Was Lily asking me to help him, or was she warning me about him? My mind was a chaotic storm of questions. I was so engrossed in the screen, in the ghost world, that I had started to forget about the real one. That was my mistake. Because that's when I heard the sound that made my blood freeze in my veins. A metallic click from my front door. The sound of a key being inserted into the deadbolt. My new, high-security deadbolt. Then, the slow, deliberate turn of the lock cylinder. A heavy, final-sounding thunk as the bolt slid free. Someone was unlocking my door from the outside. I couldn't breathe. I was completely silent, every muscle in my body tensed. I heard my front door creak open, and then footsteps. Slow, heavy, a tired, shuffling gait that I recognized instantly. It was Gable. He was inside my apartment. My heart was a frantic bird beating against the cage of my ribs. The flimsy chair I had wedged under my office doorknob suddenly felt pathetic, useless. I scrambled for my phone, my fingers fumbling to open the security camera app. I pulled up the feed for the living room camera. My breath hitched. There he was, a stooped, skeletal figure in a worn-out cardigan, standing in the middle of my living room. He wasn't looking for me. He wasn't rummaging through my things. He just stood there, his back to the camera, looking around the empty, dark space as if he was expecting someone. I watched, paralyzed, as he took a slow, shuffling step forward, stopping on the exact spot on the floor where the rusted gear had appeared. He stood there for a long moment, and then he spoke. His voice was not the angry bark from the recording, nor the creepy whisper from the hallway. It was raspy, weary, and filled with a strange, chilling authority. He was not speaking to me. He was speaking to the air, to the ghosts. Lillian, he rasped, his voice thin but carrying in the silence. I know you can hear me. You will not bring him into this. It is between you and me. It has always been. Leave the boy alone. He was talking to Lily. About me. He called me the boy. My mind reeled. He isn't just a relic from the past. He's an active participant. He knows she's here. He's been dealing with her, talking to her. This isn't a haunting he's unaware of. It's a war. A war that has been raging for over 50 years. And now, I'm not just a witness. I'm the new battlefield. Log number 8. He's gone. I watched him on the camera feed until the front door closed, and I heard the deadbolt slide back into place. My front door. Locked by him. The sense of violation is absolute. My home has been breached. My role in this nightmare has been defined. Leave the boy alone. He wasn't talking about Daniel. He was talking about me. I am the boy. A tool. A weapon that Lily is trying to use against him. And he came in here to put his weapon back in its box. I'm still in the office. Still locked in. But I feel like the roles have been reversed. I'm not hiding from the ghosts anymore. I'm hiding from the man. As I watched him on the screen, my fear was so total it almost became a strange kind of calm. This is my reality now. There is a war being fought in the spaces between my walls, and I am the prize. After he spoke to the empty air, I watched him stoop down with a pained groan, his old joints protesting. He scanned the floor, and his eyes landed on the small, rusted gear. My gear. Lily's message. He picked it up, looked at it for a moment in his palm, and then slipped it into his pocket. He was erasing the evidence, cleaning up her attempts to communicate. Then, he turned and shuffled directly towards my office. I saw his shadow fall across the living room carpet as he moved out of the camera's view. I heard his slow, scraping footsteps stop right outside this door. I held my breath, waiting for the handle to turn, for the wood to splinter. The silence stretched for an eternity. Then, I saw it. A piece of white paper, folded once, sliding under the door. It appeared an inch at a time, a pale tongue sticking out from the darkness of the hallway. I didn't move a muscle until I heard his footsteps retreat. Until I heard the front door click shut and the lock turn. I waited another 5 minutes after that, just to be sure. My legs felt weak as I crawled over to the door and picked up the note. It was a piece of cheap, lined paper, torn from a notepad. The handwriting was a spidery, almost illegible scrawl, written with a shaky hand that betrayed his age. There were only 2 words, written in the center of the page. Stop listening. It wasn't a suggestion. It was a command. And it was confirmation of everything. He knew I'd been listening through the wall. He knows I am aware. The message is clear. Drop it or else. But he doesn't understand. I can't drop it. Fleeing is impossible. He has a key to my apartment. Hiding is useless. He knows I'm here. My only path forward is to understand. I have to know what he is so desperate to protect. I have to know why Daniel's ghost is so full of rage. My survival depends on finding out what happened in this place. The digital clues from Lily have taken me as far as they can. I need physical information now. I need to know what is inside apartment 3A. The thought alone is terrifying, but it's the only logical next step. I can't break in, but if I'm going to do this, I need a plan. I need a map. Modern buildings like this have their blueprints filed publicly with the county for permits and inspections. It took me 15 minutes of searching the county planning department's online database to find the architectural plans for the Cedar Ridge complex. I downloaded the PDF for the 3rd floor. There was my apartment, 3B, and there was his, 3A. Just as I suspected, they were mirror images of each other. A living room, kitchen, bathroom, bedroom. I traced the layout with my finger on the screen, comparing his floor plan to my own. Everything was identical. The shared wall, the placement of the vents, the plumbing lines. Everything matched, until my eyes fell on the master bedroom closet. In my apartment, it's a standard walk-in closet. A simple, rectangular space. But on the blueprint for apartment 3A, the space where the closet should be, it's wrong. It's not a closet. It's a solid, thick-walled square, completely closed off. There's no door, no entry point. It's a dead space within the apartment structure. My heart began to pound. An architectural anomaly. Why would they build it that way? I zoomed in on the image, the pixels blurring. Tucked into the corner of the square, there was a tiny, almost invisible annotation. It wasn't part of the new architectural drawings. It was a scanned remnant from the original land survey, a ghost on the blueprint. It was a small string of characters. I leaned in close to my monitor, my nose almost touching the screen, and I read the faded text. FNDTN Child's RM1. Foundation. Child's Room 1. My blood went ice cold. They didn't remove everything. When they built this complex, they built it on top of, and around, a piece of the original foundation of the Northwood Children's Home. A sealed-off, inaccessible part of the orphanage is still here. A tomb. And it's located inside the walls of Arthur Gable's apartment. He didn't just choose to live on the same land. He chose to live in the one unit that contained the heart of that cursed place. And I now know with absolute certainty, I have to find a way inside. Log number 9. Ethan Hayes. There is a tomb in the wall next to me. Not a metaphorical one. A literal, physical tomb. FNDTN Child's RM1. A piece of the old orphanage, a child's room, sealed away like a pharaoh's curse. And Gable has spent the last 2 years living beside it. Guarding it. The blueprint on my screen isn't a map anymore. It's a treasure chart where X marks a spot of unimaginable horror. My fear has crystallized into a singular, terrifying purpose. I have to get inside that room. But to get into the tomb, I first have to get into the temple. Apartment 3A. And its high priest is a 92-year-old man who barely ever leaves. Breaking in is not an option. The new lock on my own door is a testament to how useless that would be against him. I need a plan. I need to observe. I need data. So I've turned my own prison into an observation post. I took the smart camera from my office and mounted it on a small tripod, positioning it directly in front of my front door's peephole. I used duct tape to secure my phone to the peephole itself, the phone's camera perfectly aligned. I'm streaming the video from the phone directly to my laptop. I now have a clear, live, secret view of the hallway and, most importantly, the pale, blank face of apartment 3's door. For the last 24 hours, that feed has been my entire world. I haven't slept. I've been surviving on coffee and the last of the protein bars in my cupboard. My work has sent 3 urgent emails that I've ignored. My world has shrunk to this grainy, distorted fisheye view of a hallway carpet. For most of the day, nothing happened. Nothing. The silence from Gable's apartment was absolute. I saw a neighbor from down the hall walk her dog. I saw a food delivery driver leave a small paper bag in front of Gable's door. An hour later, I saw the door to 3A open. Just a crack, a sliver of darkness, and a wrinkled, pale hand snaked out to grab the bag before vanishing. He was in there, watching, waiting. I was starting to lose hope. Maybe he never leaves. Maybe he has everything delivered. But then, late this afternoon, I saw it. At 4:15 p.m., the door to 3A opened. Arthur Gable shuffled out. He looked even older and more frail than he did in my living room. He was carrying a small, plastic trash bag. He moved with a painful slowness down the hall to the incinerator room, his slippers scraping against the carpet. I timed him. He was gone for 3 minutes and 22 seconds. It's a window. A dangerously small window, but it's the only one I have. 3 minutes is not enough time to pick a lock. Not his lock. But my mind was racing. How did he get into my apartment? He had a key. Where would an old man, a new resident, get a key? He wouldn't have been able to copy the electronic fobs. But the deadbolt. He must have a physical key. And then it hit me. The building manager. For emergency access, management keeps a spare key for every unit's deadbolt. It's standard practice. Gable, an elderly man living alone, would be the first person they'd insist on having a key for. My objective changed. I don't need to pick his lock. I need to get his key. I found the building manager's name on my lease agreement. Frank Henderson. I looked up the number for the management office and formulated a plan. A risky, desperate piece of social engineering. I used an app on my phone to slightly disguise my voice, making it sound a little higher, a little more frantic. And I made the call. Cedar Ridge Management, Frank speaking. His voice was bored, tired. Hello. Yes, hi, my name is David Gable, I began, the lie feeling thick and clumsy in my mouth. I'm trying to reach my great-uncle, Arthur Gable, in apartment 3A. He's not answering his phone, which is very unusual for him. I'm getting very worried. Sir, I can't give out any personal information about our residents, Frank said flatly. No, I understand. I said, injecting a dose of panic into my voice. It's just, he's 92. He had a bad fall last year. I'm on my way there now, but I'm coming from out of town. I'm still an hour away. Could you possibly just use your key to open his door and check if he's okay? Please. I'm terrified he's on the floor somewhere. There was a long pause. I could hear him sigh on the other end of the line. Sir, our policy is not to enter a residence unit without their permission. He could be dying. I yelled, letting the raw, sleep-deprived desperation in my own voice fuel the performance. What if he's had a stroke? I'm begging you. Another pause. Longer this time. Okay, he said finally, his voice full of reluctance. Okay, calm down. I'll go up and check on him. Apartment 3A, you said. Yes, thank you. Thank you so much, I breathed, and hung up before he could ask any more questions. My heart is pounding. The plan is in motion, but 1,000 things could go wrong. I'm staring at the peephole feed on my laptop. It's been 2 minutes. Any second now. There. The elevator doors at the end of the hall just opened. A man in a gray polo shirt, Henderson, is walking down the hall. He's holding a single key. He's approaching 3A. He's stopping. He's knocking on the door. Mr. Gable? It's Frank from the front office. Mr. Gable. No answer. He's raising the key. He's putting it in the lock. My God, this is it. I'm about to see inside. The sound of the lock turning is impossibly loud, even through the phone's cheap microphone. Log number 10. My name is Ethan Hayes. The door is closed. He's gone. Henderson is gone. I watched him on the peephole feed as he unlocked and pushed open the door to apartment 3A. My view was skewed, limited, but I saw enough. It's clean in there. Shockingly clean. The furniture is sparse, old, and covered in what looks like white sheets, as if the owner has been gone for decades. The floor is bare wood, polished to a dull sheen. But the walls, the small section of wall I could see was wrong. It was painted a drab, sterile white, but underneath the paint, the surface was a network of deep, frantic scratches. Hundreds of them. Like a caged animal had tried to claw its way out through the drywall. In the center of the room, on that polished floor, was a single object. A small, child-sized wooden chair, dark with age. It wasn't facing the center of the room or a window. It was turned to face a blank, empty wall. A punishment chair. A timeout chair. The sight of it made me feel sick to my stomach. Henderson stepped inside, calling out, Mr. Gable? Hello. It's Frank from the front office. He moved out of my line of sight. I could only listen, my ear pressed against my laptop speaker. I heard his footsteps echo slightly in the sparse room. Another. Mr. Gable? Then silence for about 10 seconds. It was the longest 10 seconds of my life. Then, I heard Henderson's voice, muffled but clear. Huh. That's odd. What was odd? What did he see that I couldn't? A moment later, his footsteps returned, and he reappeared in the doorway, a confused frown on his face. He pulled the door shut, and I heard the solid final click of the deadbolt locking. He gave the door one last, puzzled look, then walked back down the hall and out of sight. My plan had failed. I hadn't gotten a clear look at the sealed room, and the door was locked again. But the plan had also succeeded in a way I never intended. I had a glimpse of the madness inside that apartment, and I had confirmed something far more important. Gable wasn't in there. My blood ran cold. He left to take out the trash. Henderson showed up less than 5 minutes later. The trip to the incinerator room takes 3 minutes and 22 seconds. Where is he? He should have come back. He should have run into Henderson in the hallway. As my mind reeled with this new terrifying question, my laptop chimed with a familiar, dreaded sound. The sound of a new file appearing on my desktop. My eyes snapped to the screen. The entity, Lily, was reacting to my actions, to Henderson opening the door. This time, it wasn't a sound file or a picture. It was a video. The file name was Incinerated, MP4. My hands were shaking so badly, I could barely control the cursor. This felt different. This felt immediate. I clicked play. The video was grainy, shot from a high corner, the unmistakable look of a low-resolution security camera. The timestamp in the bottom left corner was from 7 minutes ago. The location was the incinerator room at the end of the hall. The room was empty for a moment, then the door opened and Arthur Gable shuffled in, just as I'd seen him do on my peephole camera. He moved to the wall, pulled open the heavy metal door of the incinerator chute, and dropped his small white trash bag into the darkness. But then he didn't leave. He just stood there, his back to the camera, his shoulders slumped. He seemed to be waiting. The door to the room, which had swung shut behind him, slowly creaked open again. A figure stepped through the doorway and into the stark, fluorescent light. It wasn't a person. It was a flickering, semi-transparent apparition of a teenage boy. He was tall, thin, and his body seemed to glitch and distort at the edges. His face was pale, almost luminous, and it was twisted into the same silent, agonizing scream of rage I had seen in the altered photograph. It was Daniel. Gable didn't seem surprised. He turned, not with fear, but with a profound, weary resignation, as if he were turning to face a storm he knew had been brewing for 50 years. The video had no audio, but I could see Gable's mouth move. He was speaking to the ghost. Pleading, perhaps. Or commanding. Daniel's apparition seemed to swell with rage. His ghostly form vibrated, and he lunged forward, his hands outstretched like claws, aimed directly at Arthur Gable. The instant he lunged, the video feed erupted into a violent snowstorm of white static. The file ended. I stared at my blank screen, my heart a block of ice in my chest. Gable never came back from the incinerator room. He's in there. He's trapped in there with the violent, vengeful ghost of Daniel Miller. And I am the one who just sent the building manager away. I am the one who ensured that no one is looking for him. Log number 11. My name is, oh God. I watched it 3 times. The static at the end of the video is burned into my brain. Daniel. That rage, it was pure, unrestrained violence. And Gable, he's trapped in there with him. This is my fault. I did this. I called the manager. I created the distraction. I sent help away. I effectively sealed that old man in a concrete box with a 50-year-old storm of vengeful energy. My tormentor, the man who left me a threatening note, the man who has made my life a living hell, is in mortal danger. And my first, sickening reaction is a wave of guilt. What do I do? What in God's name am I supposed to do? Call the police. Hello, officer? I'd like to report a ghost attacking an old man in my building's trash room. The proof is on a video file that another ghost just airdropped to my laptop. They'd have me in a padded cell before I finished the sentence. Call Henderson back. He'd think I was a lunatic, the crazy relative of a crazy old man. I'm cornered. If I do nothing, I'm leaving a man to die, and whatever Daniel is, he's not going to be satisfied with just one victim. When he's done with Gable, where does that rage go? The walls are thin. He knows I'm here. Lily brought me into this, and Daniel knows it. Hiding is no longer an option. There is no escape. There is only one, single, insane path forward. I have to go there. I have to go to the incinerator room. My hands feel clumsy, disconnected from my body as I prepare. What do you take to an exorcism? I have no holy water, no crucifix. I have technology and data. It feels pathetic. I grab my phone, the one true weapon I seem to possess in this whole nightmare. I make sure the lily.wave file, her sad, humming memory, is open and ready to play. It's a desperate, insane idea. A shield made of sound. I grab the heavy metal flashlight from my kitchen drawer. Its beam is my only other weapon. Light against the darkness. Leaving my apartment is the hardest thing I have ever done. I unlock the 3 locks on my door, my heart pounding with each metallic click. The hallway is silent. The air is cold and still. It feels different than before. The building itself seems to be holding its breath. Every step I take towards the incinerator room at the end of the hall is a lifetime. The cheap carpet absorbs the sound of my footsteps, making me feel like I'm floating towards my own doom. The door to the incinerator room is exactly as it was in the video, slightly ajar. A single sliver of pale, flickering fluorescent light cuts through the darkness of the hall. I stop. I listen. There are no screams, no sounds of a struggle. There's just a low, rhythmic noise. A soft, steady thump, 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 like a slow, dying heartbeat. My hand is trembling as I push the door open. The hinges groan in protest. The room is small, cold, and smells of ozone and decay. The overhead light buzzes and flickers, casting long, dancing shadows. My flashlight beam cuts through the gloom. I see Gable first. He's alive. He's slumped on the floor against the far wall, his legs splayed out in front of him. His eyes are open, wide, and staring blankly at the ceiling. They are milky with a catatonic, soul-deep terror I have never seen in a human being. The sound, the soft thump, 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 is coming from his right hand. His index finger is tapping, slowly and methodically, against the grimy concrete floor. He's completely unresponsive, trapped in his own mind. Then, I pan the flashlight beam to the left, and my heart stops. He's there, Daniel. He is a column of shimmering, glitching static in the shape of a teenage boy, standing over Gable's prone form. The rage is radiating off him in invisible waves, making the air in the room feel thick and heavy. He isn't looking at Gable. He isn't touching him. He's just watching him, feeding on his terror. As the beam of my flashlight hits him, his head turns. It moves with an unnatural, slow-motion grace that defies physics. His body remains facing Gable, but his neck twists, and his furious, black hole eyes, burning with a rage that has festered for half a century, lock directly onto mine. He was never here for Gable. Not really. Gable was just the bait. I was the target all along. He was waiting for me. Log number 12. I'm in the room. He's here. His eyes are, they're not eyes. They are pits of burning coal in a face made of television static. The rage coming off of him is a physical force, pressing in on me, making the air crackle and the fillings in my teeth ache. The buzzing from the fluorescent light above intensifies, its pitch rising to a painful whine. Gable is forgotten on the floor. His rhythmic tapping has stopped. There is only the buzzing, my own frantic heartbeat, and the terrible, focused silence of the ghost of Daniel Miller. He moves. It's not like walking. He simply ceases to be in one place and appears in another, closer. He glitches across the room in a jarring, instantaneous leap that my brain can't properly process. One moment he's across the room, the next he's 10 feet away. The temperature in the room plummets. I can see my breath misting in the air, illuminated by my flashlight beam. He glitches again. 5 feet away. I can see the details of his furious, screaming face, the flickering outline of his translucent, grasping hands. This is it. I'm going to die here, in this filthy, forgotten room. My mind is a blank wall of terror, but my body acts on its own. My thumb, clumsy and numb with cold, finds the screen of my phone. Instinct. Desperation. It's the only move I have left. I hit play. The sound that fills the small concrete room is so out of place it's almost violent in its delicacy. The clear, sad notes of Lily's music box. My pathetic, desperate shield of sound. The effect is immediate and absolute. Daniel's ghost freezes in mid-lunge. The wave of pure hatred that had been crushing me suddenly falters. As Lily's innocent, humming voice joins the melody, Daniel's form recoils as if struck by a physical blow. The silent scream on his face dissolves, replaced by a look of profound, agonizing confusion. His form flickers violently, the static of his body warring with the purity of the sound. It's like the memory, Lily's memory, is poison to his rage. The buzzing light overhead flickers wildly, and for a split second, the room changes. The concrete walls are replaced by peeling, water-stained wallpaper. The incinerator chute becomes a small, dark wooden wardrobe. I'm not in the incinerator room anymore. I'm in a child's bedroom from the past. I see a small bed, a tiny window with bars on it. I see a flash of the young, living Daniel. He's standing in front of a crying Lily, his fists clenched, his body positioned between her and a tall, dark shape looming in the doorway. It's Gable. Daniel is not hurting her. He's protecting her. The vision is gone as quickly as it came, but the understanding remains, seared into my mind. Daniel wasn't a troublemaker. He was a protector. And he failed. His rage isn't random. It's the crystallized agony of a child who couldn't stop the monster. The music box tune plays on. Daniel's ghostly form seems to shrink in on itself, the rage being overwhelmed by the memory, by the sadness. With one last, violent distortion that makes the lights flicker and die, he vanishes completely. He's gone. The lights buzz back to life, weaker than before. I'm left standing in the center of the room, shaking uncontrollably, my phone still playing the ghost of a lullaby. The immediate threat has vanished. I survived. I look over at Gable. He's in the same position, his eyes still wide and blank. A shell. The final, soft notes of the music box fade, and the recording of Lily's humming ends, plunging the room into a thick, ringing silence. But the silence only lasts for a moment. It's replaced by a new sound. A sound that is somehow 1,000 times worse than the ghost's silent scream. It's a slow, rhythmic scratching. And it's coming from inside the incinerator. A dry, metallic scrape, scrape, scrape. It's coming from deep within the dark, metal chute. It sounds like long fingernails, or perhaps something made of rusted metal, clawing its way up from the darkness below. It's the same sound I heard from Gable's apartment. The same sound I heard outside my own front door. Something is in there. And it's climbing. Log number 13. The scratching. It filled the silence left by Daniel's vanishing act. A sound so physical, so real, it felt 100 times more threatening than the ghost itself. My heart, which had just started to slow, kicked back into a frantic rhythm. I was frozen, my flashlight beam fixed on the heavy, iron door of the incinerator chute. The sound was coming from inside. A desperate, rhythmic clawing. Something was trying to get out. Or, something was trying to get my attention. My sanity, what was left of it, screamed at me to run. To leave Gable to his catatonic fate, to abandon this cursed building and never look back. But I couldn't. I am a part of this now. Lily's files, Daniel's rage, Gable's warnings, they have woven me into the fabric of their tragedy. I am no longer a bystander. Fleeing felt less like an escape and more like an abdication. So, I walked towards the sound. Each step was heavy, my shoes sticking to the grimy floor. The scraping grew louder, more frantic as I approached the chute. It was the sound of metal on metal, a grating, agonizing noise that vibrated through the soles of my feet. I reached the chute. My hand, slick with cold sweat, rested on the heavy iron handle. I braced myself for whatever horror lay within, and with a guttural yell born of pure adrenaline, I pulled. The door was incredibly heavy. It opened with a deep, groaning protest of rusted hinges. The instant it broke its seal, the scraping stopped. A puff of cold, stagnant air, smelling of ash and damp earth, washed over me from the dark opening. I aimed my flashlight into the abyss. The chute was a long, dark, vertical tunnel, maybe 3 feet wide, dropping straight down into the building's sub-basement. My beam cut through the darkness, illuminating the grimy, riveted metal walls. It was empty. There was no monster. No creature trying to claw its way up. There was nothing. I almost laughed with a dizzying sense of relief, until my light hit the bottom. About 30 feet down, lying in a small pile of dust and debris, was a small, dark, rectangular object. A wooden box. It was her music box. My mind struggled to make sense of it. How? Why was it down there? But as I stared, I realized that wasn't the source of the sound. I slowly panned my flashlight beam back up the interior of the chute. And then I saw it. The metal walls were covered in scratches. But they weren't random. It was writing. A single word, carved over and over again, from the bottom all the way to the top. A desperate, jagged script. Daniel. Next to each repetition of the name was a crude, childlike drawing of a key. The realization hit me with the force of a physical blow. The scraping, it wasn't a monster trying to get out. It was Daniel's ghost, trapped or anchored to this place, trying to send a message. All this time, the sound from Gable's apartment, from outside my door, he wasn't trying to scare me. He was trying to write this, to tell me something. Daniel. Key. He wasn't the monster. He was the messenger. I needed the key. A key to the music box. It had to be the answer, or at least the next step. But the box was 30 feet down a vertical shaft. As I stood there, staring down at the impossible prize, my phone buzzed in my hand. It was a notification from the camera I'd left taped to my peephole. My heart leaped into my throat. I opened it. The app showed me a single captured still image from the hallway. An image that was clear and impossibly sharp. The hallway was empty, steeped in shadow. But standing directly in front of apartment 3A, Gable's apartment, was a small, translucent figure. It was the ghost of a little girl with large, sad eyes. It was Lily. She wasn't looking at Gable's door. She wasn't looking down the hall. She was turned, staring directly at my peephole, directly at the camera, as if she knew I was watching. And in her small, ghostly hand, which she held outstretched towards me, was a small, ornate, antique metal key. She has the key. She's not in the past. She's not in a file. She's in the hallway, right now, and she's waiting for me. Log number 14. My name is Ethan Hayes. I'm walking back to my apartment. She's waiting for me. Or at least, the next step of this insane scavenger hunt is. The image on my phone is burned into my memory. Lily, a sad little ghost, standing in the hallway where I now walk, holding out the key. A summons. An invitation. She needs me to do this. After seeing Daniel's protective rage, after understanding that this isn't just a haunting but a memory crying out for justice, I know I don't have a choice. But first, there was Gable. I couldn't just leave him on the floor of the incinerator room. It wasn't morality, not really. It was pragmatism. A body, even a living one, would bring police, questions, an investigation that I could not possibly survive. He was a piece of the puzzle, my puzzle, and I had to put him back in his box. Dragging his dead weight down the hallway was a nightmare. He was limp, unresponsive, his eyes locked in that catatonic stare, his finger no longer tapping. He was surprisingly heavy. Every few feet I had to stop, my lungs burning, my muscles screaming. I finally got him to the door of 3A and propped him up against the wall. It was locked, of course. Henderson had seen to that. I had no way in. I was about to give up, to just leave him there, when I heard it. A soft, metallic click. The deadbolt on apartment 3A unlocked itself. I stared, my mouth hanging open. It was her, Lily. She was clearing the way for me. I pushed the door open, dragged Gable inside, and half-dumped him into a hard-backed armchair near the door. Being inside 3A again, even for a moment, was different. Now I understood. The frantic scratches beneath the paint on the walls weren't from an animal. They were the marks of a terrified, furious boy trying to claw his way out. The child's chair facing the wall wasn't just an odd piece of furniture. It was an instrument of torture, a place of punishment. The whole apartment felt like a monument to cruelty. I didn't linger. I backed out and closed the door, leaving the monster to his living nightmare. I knew where I had to look. The photo showed her standing right here, in front of the door. She wasn't holding the key out to be admired. She was showing me where she had left it. My eyes scanned the area. The light fixture above, the door frame. Too obvious. Then I looked down. The doormat. A simple, plain brown doormat. With a trembling hand, I knelt and lifted the corner. And there it was. Cold, dark, and impossibly real. An ornate, old-fashioned winding key, the kind used for music boxes and old clocks. It was tarnished with age, but felt heavy, substantial in my palm. I have the key. I walked back into my apartment, the key clutched in my fist, my mind racing. I have the key. The box is at the bottom of the incinerator chute. Now I just had to solve the simple problem of getting to it. I couldn't climb down there. I'd need rope, climbing gear, things I absolutely did not have. I sat down at my laptop, intending to search for some kind of long-reach grabbing tool I could get delivered, a desperate, foolish plan. As I sat down, my laptop chimed. My eyes snapped to the screen. A new file. On the desktop. Of course. She knew what I needed before I did. The file name was not a name or a simple word this time. It was technical. Blueprint_detail_02.pdf. My heart pounded as I double-clicked. It wasn't a blueprint of the apartment layouts. It was a mechanical schematic, a detailed diagram of the building's service infrastructure. It showed the incinerator chute, the ventilation systems, the plumbing, and it was annotated. A single area of the schematic was highlighted with a faint, ghostly red circle. A small, square panel located in the hallway wall, about 10 feet from the incinerator room door. According to the architect's label, it was the sub-basement ash cleanout hatch. The diagram showed the hatch opened into a narrow maintenance corridor, and that corridor led directly to the base of the incinerator shaft. I stared at the screen, a slow smile of disbelief spreading across my face. It's a secret entrance. A back door. A way to get to the music box without anyone ever knowing. Lily has given me a map to the heart of her memory. The final piece is in my hand. I know what I have to do next. I have to go to the basement. Log number 15. This is Ethan Hayes. There is no more doubt. No more hiding. The fear is still a cold knot in my stomach, but for the first time since this began, it's been joined by something else, purpose. Lily didn't just give me a map. She gave me a mission. I have the key. Now I must retrieve the box. The ghosts of this place are speaking to me, and I have decided to answer. I spent 10 minutes gearing up, the absurdity of it not lost on me. I'm an analyst, not a commando. But I found a multi-tool with a screwdriver head in my junk drawer. I pulled on a pair of thick rubber gloves from under the sink. I checked the batteries in my heavy-duty flashlight. Armed with these pathetic implements and a cursed antique key, I prepared to go behind the wall. I opened my apartment door and stepped back into the silent hallway. It no longer felt like enemy territory. It felt like a path, a playing field. I found the maintenance hatch easily, exactly where the schematic showed it would be. A small, unassuming square of metal, painted over so many times it was almost flush with the wall. It was locked with a simple flathead bolt lock, the kind meant to keep out casual curiosity, not someone with a mission. Getting it open was the most nerve-wracking 2 minutes of my life. Every scrape of my screwdriver against the metal, every groan of the panel as I pried at its edges, sounded like a gunshot in the dead silence. I kept glancing frantically up and down the hallway, expecting a door to open, for Henderson to appear and demand to know what I was doing. But no one came. The building remained silent, a willing accomplice. With one last painful screech, the lock gave way, and the panel swung inward into darkness. The air that billowed out was ancient and cold, thick with the smell of dust and concrete. I aimed my flashlight inside. It was a narrow, claustrophobic space, a tight corridor choked with pipes, electrical conduits, and thick bundles of cable. The hidden guts of the building. Taking one last look at the empty hallway, I swung my legs inside, squeezed my body through the opening, and pulled the hatch shut behind me. I was plunged into absolute, pitch-black silence, broken only by my own ragged breathing. I was inside the wall. The journey was short but terrifying. I shuffled sideways, my back scraping against the rough concrete, my flashlight beam cutting a shaky path through the oppressive dark. Dust motes danced in the light like tiny, frantic spirits. After about 20 feet, the narrow corridor opened up into a slightly larger space. My light fell upon a large, cylindrical metal tunnel rising from the floor and disappearing up into the ceiling. The incinerator shaft. I was at the bottom. I aimed my beam upwards, into the darkness. I could see them clearly from this angle, the frantic, desperate words scratched into the metal. Daniel. Key. His messages from the abyss. Then, I lowered the beam to the floor. And there it was. Sitting in a bed of gray ash and dust, as if placed on a velvet cushion, was the music box. It was smaller than I imagined, made of a dark, unadorned wood, looking perfectly preserved. I knelt, my heart pounding with a strange mix of terror and triumph, and I picked it up. It felt cold, but it hummed with a faint, residual energy. I had it. I had the box. I had the key. I had the answer. As I stood up, my light brushed across the dusty floor, and I saw something that made me freeze. Footprints. In the fine layer of ash, there were faint but distinct footprints. They were small, barefoot. A child's footprints. They led from the base of the chute to a dark corner of the small room and then vanished. Lily and Daniel. They were here. This was their space. My light followed the prints to the corner, and I saw something else, half buried in the ash. A piece of paper, folded and tattered. I picked it up. It was a child's drawing, made with wax crayons. My blood went cold. The drawing showed two stick figures, a small girl holding a box and a taller boy. Lily and Daniel. They were holding hands. But their happy union was ruined by the thick, black vertical lines drawn in front of them. They were in a cage. On the other side of the bars stood a third figure, tall and drawn with angry, jagged scribbles. Gable. In his hand, he held a single thick black line that connected to the bottom of their cage, as if he were their jailer. But that wasn't the most horrifying part. Behind Gable, drawn more faintly, was another set of bars. A second cage. And inside that cage was another figure. A stick figure with long hair and a crudely drawn dress. A woman. She was a prisoner, too. I stared at the impossible drawing, a new, chilling question burning in my mind. The story wasn't about two children and their monster. There was a fourth person. Who was she? Log number 16. I'm back. I'm back in my apartment, but I don't think I'll ever truly leave that cold, dark space behind the wall. I'm looking at the drawing, now spread out on my desk under the glare of a lamp. A child's nightmare, rendered in crayon. Lily and Daniel, caged. Gable, their jailer. And her. The fourth figure. The woman in the second cage. The whole time, I thought this was about two children. But the story is bigger. Darker. There was another victim. The journey back was a blur of adrenaline and terror. I pocketed the drawing, clutched the music box to my chest like a holy relic, and scrambled back through that dusty, claustrophobic corridor. Emerging back into the third-floor hallway felt like being born into a world I no longer recognized. I locked the maintenance hatch behind me, hoping it would hold its secrets, and fled back to the relative sanity of my apartment. Now, I am here. In my office. The door is locked. The music box is on my desk. Beside it sits the ornate, tarnished key. For several minutes, I just stared at them. The heart of the mystery, and the key to unlock it. The culmination of all the whispers, the files, the apparitions. My hand was steady as I picked up the key. It felt cold, ancient. I picked up the box. It was surprisingly light. I inserted the key into the small lock on the front. It turned with a soft, satisfying click. I held my breath and lifted the lid. I expected music to play, but there was only silence. The mechanism inside was broken, the metal comb bent and twisted. But the contents were perfectly preserved. Lying on a bed of faded, threadbare red velvet were 3 items. My breath caught in my throat. The first was a small, rusted metal gear. It was identical to the one I found on my floor. The one Gable had taken from my living room. Its presence here was a physical impossibility, a defiant middle finger to the laws of physics. It was proof. These things, these ghosts, can move objects. They can take and they can give. The second item was a tarnished, heart-shaped silver locket. It was small, the kind a young woman might wear. With trembling fingers, I worked at the delicate clasp. It sprang open. Inside were 2 tiny, faded photographs, protected behind thin, yellowed plastic. On the right side was a photo of Lily and Daniel. They were younger, their faces bright and full of life. Lily was smiling, and Daniel had his arm thrown protectively around her shoulder. They weren't just friends, they were family. On the left side was a photo of a woman. She had kind eyes and a warm, gentle smile. It was her, the woman from the drawing. The third item was a small piece of paper, folded into a tiny square. It was brittle with age. I carefully unfolded it. It was a note, written in the messy, hurried scrawl of a child, the crayon pressing deep into the paper. It wasn't for me. It was for her. It read, "Martha, he locked you in the quiet room. He says we're next." I tried to stop him. "I'm sorry." I read it 3 times, the words rearranging the entire story in my mind. Martha. The woman had a name. The quiet room. It must have been the sealed-off part of the foundation. Gable didn't just punish them. He imprisoned them. Deliberately. And Daniel, the troublemaker, had tried to stop him. His rage wasn't just about the fire. It was about his failure to save the people he loved from a monster, long before the first flame was ever struck. I was looking at the kind face of Martha in the locket, my mind reeling with questions. Who was she? A teacher? A cook? Why was she so important? As if hearing my thoughts, my laptop chimed. My eyes darted to the screen. A new file had appeared, its icon a stark white rectangle against my dark desktop. Lily was answering my question. The file name was clear, official, and utterly chilling. Employment_record_martha_pdf. I have her name. And now, I have her file. Log number 17. I have her file. It's on my screen, a portal to the past sent from a ghost. Employment_record_martha_pdf. The document is a scan of an old, typewritten page, the letterhead of the Northwood Children's Home faded at the top. It's real. It's a tangible piece of history. My hands are trembling as I read. Martha Wells. Hired on May 12, 1967. Position, child welfare case manager. She was a social worker, an advocate. Her job was to protect them. The first page is standard bureaucratic fare. Her qualifications, her references. But attached behind it is a second page, a carbon copy of a letter, thin and ghost-like. It's a formal letter of concern, addressed to the County Division of Child Services. It's written by Martha, and it's a portrait of a monster. Her words are professional, clinical, but the terror bleeds through the spaces between the typewritten letters. She writes of Director Gable's severe and archaic disciplinary methods. She details his obsessive focus on particular children, noting that his praise was often as disturbing as his punishments. She mentions Daniel Miller by name, not as a troublemaker, but as a highly protective peer who often places himself in harm's way to defend the younger children from the director's unwarranted verbal aggressions. Then I get to the third paragraph, and the world falls away. Martha describes her discovery of an unlisted room in the building's subbasement, a space Gable referred to as the quiet room. She writes that the room was soundproofed with thick insulation and had a heavy locking door. She states her belief that Gable used this room to isolate children for days at a time, without food or light, for the smallest infractions. It was a torture chamber. Daniel's note wasn't a metaphor. He locked you in the quiet room. The letter ends with a formal, desperate plea for an immediate and unannounced full-site inspection, stating, "I have grave concerns for the physical and psychological safety of the children under his care." The date at the bottom of the letter is October 28, 1968. The fire that destroyed the Northwood Children's Home happened on the night of October 31st, Halloween, 3 days after she sent this letter. The pieces don't just click into place, they slam together with the force of an explosion. It wasn't an accident. It was a cover-up. Martha was going to expose him. So Gable did what monsters do. He silenced her. He took her, his accuser, and locked her in her own worst discovery, the quiet room. He was going to deal with Daniel and Lily next. The fire. He burned the whole place to the ground to hide one body, to erase his sins in a blaze of tragedy that would be mistaken for an accident. As this horrific truth settles over me, the air in my office changes. The temperature drops so fast my breath fogs in front of me. The low hum of my computer fades, replaced by a new sound. It's not scraping, not a music box. It's the sound of weeping. A woman's soft, heartbroken sobs, coming from everywhere at once. It's in the corners of the room, it's beside my ear, it's inside my own head. It's a tidal wave of pure, undiluted sorrow. It's Martha. She knows that I know. I'm paralyzed, engulfed by her grief. My eyes are fixed on the letter on my screen. Through the tears welling in my own eyes, I see it. The mouse cursor. It's moving. It glides with an eerie smoothness across the text of Martha's letter. It stops at the very last paragraph. It clicks and slowly, deliberately, drags a shimmering blue selection box over a single, chilling sentence. I have compiled a separate file of my personal notes and the children's testimonies, which is kept in a secure location within the home. The weeping stops. The room is plunged into an abrupt, deafening silence. My eyes are locked on the highlighted sentence. There's more. More proof. A secret file. Her notes. The children's own words. Hidden somewhere. And there is only one piece of the home that still exists. The tomb in the wall. The quiet room. I am no longer just a witness to a past tragedy. I am being given a task. The ghosts aren't just crying for justice. They are telling me, quite specifically, how to get it for them. Log number 18. I have a new objective. It's no longer just about understanding. It's about recovery. The sentence is still highlighted on my monitor, a glowing beacon in the dark of my office. I have compiled a separate file of my personal notes and the children's testimonies, which is kept in a secure location within the home. A file. The children's own words. The final, undeniable proof of Gable's crimes, hidden for 50 years. The ghosts aren't just asking for justice. They're giving me a roadmap to it. And the map leads through my bedroom wall. My fear has been burned away by a cold, sharp clarity. I pulled up the building blueprints again, my focus no longer on secret hatches, but on structural details. I analyzed the shared wall between my apartment, 3B, and the sealed, dead space marked FNDTN Child's RM1, the tomb. The blueprints showed the thick, reinforced foundation wall was primarily on Gable's side. The wall on my side, the one that separated this world from that one, was standard construction. Wood studs and drywall. It was built during the apartment's construction, a thin veil of modernity thrown over an old wound. The thinnest part of that veil, the most covert place to attempt an entry, was from the back of my bedroom closet. I don't own a sledgehammer. My toolkit consists of a screwdriver and a wrench for assembling IKEA furniture. So, I went online. The absurdity was staggering. At 2 in the morning, surrounded by evidence of a multi-generational haunting, I was calmly comparing prices on drywall saws, stud finders, and pry bars. I clicked Add to Cart. I paid for same-day delivery. The tools to break into a tomb would be arriving in a plain brown box, just like a new pair of shoes. Now I wait. The waiting is different this time. The apartment is quiet. The oppressive, sorrowful atmosphere that arrived with Martha's presence has lifted. It's been replaced by a feeling of anticipation, a focused, cooperative silence. The ghosts are waiting, too. They know I have a plan, and they are helping. An hour ago, a new file appeared on my desktop. No fanfare, no chime. It was just there. Schedule.txt. I opened it. It was a simple, typed-out list of times. Security Patrol, East Hallway, 11:15 p.m., 1:15 a.m., 3:15 a.m., 5:15 a.m. They've given me a timetable. They are my lookouts. We are now officially co-conspirators. The delivery arrived at 3 p.m. The knock on the door made me jump, a jarring intrusion of the real world. I opened the door to a cheerful delivery guy who handed me the heavy, rectangular box. "Have a good one," he said with a smile, oblivious to the fact that he was arming me for a desecration. I thanked him, my voice a dry croak, and locked the door behind him. And now, here I am, standing in my own bedroom closet. The box is open at my feet. The tools are laid out on the carpet, a long, serrated drywall saw, a small but heavy pry bar, and a yellow electronic stud finder. The air is still and stuffy. It smells of cedar and old clothes. I took everything off the back wall, leaving a blank expanse of pale, beige paint. The final barrier. It's time. I picked up the stud finder, the plastic feeling cheap and flimsy in my hand. I switched it on. It let out a cheerful, electronic beep. I took a breath and pressed it against the wall. The silence in here is absolute. I slid the device to the left. A few inches later, it beeped again, a small green light flashing. A stud. I made a small pencil mark. I slid it further. Another stud, 16 inches later. Perfect. Normal. My plan was simple. Cut a large removable square in the hollow space between these two studs. I moved the stud finder into the center of that hollow space, the spot where I would make my first cut. And then, something impossible happened. Instead of staying silent, the stud finder let out a continuous, high-pitched, piercing shriek. The green light flashed a frantic, angry red. On the small LCD screen, a single message blinked over and over, a message I have never seen before. Density error. Metal object detected. I stared at the blinking text, my blood turning to ice. I slid the device up. It kept shrieking. Down. The same. Left and right. The shriek only stopped when I hit the wooden studs. There is something behind the drywall. Something that isn't a pipe, isn't a conduit. The blueprints showed nothing here but hollow space. But it's here. A large, solid sheet of metal. The quiet room isn't just a room. It's a vault. And Gable sealed it from the inside out. Log number 19. It's a vault. He built a vault. My plan, my neat, surgical plan to slice through the drywall, is in pieces. I spent 20 minutes mapping the wall with the stud finder. The results are undeniable and insane. Bolted to the wooden studs, behind the thin layer of drywall, is a solid sheet of metal. It covers the entire section between the studs, a floor-to-ceiling plate of cold, hard iron. I tapped on it with the handle of my screwdriver. The sound is a dead, solid thud. Impenetrable. My brief feeling of clarity and purpose has curdled into a hot, helpless rage. This wasn't part of the apartment's construction. This was custom. This was his work. What kind of man reinforces the wall of a hidden tomb? The level of premeditation, of deliberate, calculated cruelty, is staggering. He wasn't just hiding a room. He was ensuring that what he put inside could never, ever get out. A drywall saw is a toy now. Useless. I need something brutal. Something that can tear through steel. I stormed out of the closet and back to my laptop, my mind racing. I fell down a rabbit hole of power tools, my search history a testament to my madness. How to cut through sheet metal, best angle grinders for steel, residential demolition tools. The risk is astronomical. An angle grinder isn't quiet. It doesn't scrape, it screams. The noise would be deafening. It would travel through the vents, through the floor. Anyone on this side of the building would hear it. I was about to abandon the idea, to admit defeat, my head in my hands, when my laptop chimed. A soft, gentle sound that was completely at odds with my violent thoughts. A new file. Voicemail_transcript_10-29-1968.txt. My breath hitched. Lily. Martha. They were responding to my despair. I opened the file. It was a scanned, typewritten transcript, stamped with the seal of the County Child Services Office. It was Martha's voice, from the day after she filed her report. Her final message. M. Wells. Voices hurried, strained. John, it's Martha Wells again. I'm sorry to call twice in 2 days, but I know I just filed my report, and something is very wrong. Director Gable knows. I don't know how, but he knows. He was watching me today. His eyes. John, he looked right through me. The children are terrified. They're refusing to speak to me. Daniel tried to pass me a note. He said Gable was in the sub-basement near the quiet room all last night, with tools. He said it sounded like he was building something, reinforcing it. Please, I'm begging you, you have to get someone here now. Don't wait for the formal review. I fear, call ends abruptly. The words hit me like a physical blow. He knew. Gable knew she had reported him. And in the 48 hours before the fire, he spent his time not preparing an escape, but fortifying his prison. He built this vault specifically for her. This wasn't just a cover-up. It was a custom-built execution. Any hesitation I had, any concern for the noise or the risk, evaporated. It was replaced by a cold, burning determination. This is not just about justice anymore. This is about answering a 50-year-old cry for help. I opened my browser again, found the most powerful, compact angle grinder I could get with next-day delivery, and bought it without a second thought. The last 24 hours have been the most intense, focused wait of my life. I have the security patrol schedule open in one window, the live feed from my peephole camera in another. I have my window of opportunity. Between the 1:15 a.m. and 3:15 a.m. patrols. 2 hours. 2 hours to tear a hole in reality. The box arrived an hour ago. I brought it straight to the closet. Now I'm here, standing in front of the wall. The box is open. The angle grinder is in my hands. It's heavier than I expected. A brutal, industrial beast of black and yellow plastic and cold, hard steel. This is not a tool for home repair. This is a weapon. I took the small tarnished key to the music box and tucked it safely into the zippered pocket of my jacket. I pulled on the thick rubber gloves. I put on the plastic safety goggles that came in the box. My reflection in the dark, circular cutting disc is a warped, monstrous version of myself. An analyst turned Tomb Raider. This is it. There's no going back. I plugged the grinder's thick black cord into the wall socket. I took my stance, my feet planted wide. I gripped the tool with both hands. I flipped the power switch. The machine exploded into life with a deafening, high-pitched scream, a banshee's wail of pure, unrestrained power. The noise was a physical thing, vibrating up my arms and into my skull, shaking the very air in the tiny closet. It was the loudest sound I have ever heard. And it was the sound of a promise being kept. Log number 20. The noise. I think I'll hear that sound in my sleep for the rest of my life. A sound that could tear apart ghosts. I made the first cut through the drywall, which peeled away like paper, revealing the dark, rusted steel plate behind it. It was real. A solid, ugly sheet of defiance. For a moment, I almost lost my nerve. But then I felt it. A profound, unnatural cold seeping from the wall, a familiar presence. Lily, Daniel, Martha. They were here, watching, waiting. I gripped the angle grinder, braced myself, and pulled the trigger. The world dissolved into a storm of violence. Incandescent orange sparks filled the tiny closet, a beautiful and terrifying firework display, illuminating my own gritted teeth and wide, terrified eyes in the reflection of my goggles. The shriek of the disc against the steel was a physical assault, a vibration that ran up my arms and rattled my skull. The air grew thick with the acrid, metallic stink of burnt steel. My arms screamed in protest, my muscles burning from the strain of holding the heavy tool steady. My eyes kept darting to the glowing screen of my phone, propped up in the corner. 2:10 a.m. The next patrol was at 3:15. I was racing a clock, fighting a 50-year-old wall of hatred. As I worked, the lights in my bedroom began to flicker and dim, pulsing in time with the grinder's roar. Faint whispers seemed to ride on the edge of the noise, just beneath the shriek of the machine. Hurry. Almost. She's waiting. They were cheering me on. After what felt like an eternity of noise and fire and pain, the final cut was made. The grinder fell silent. The silence that rushed in to replace it was a physical presence, ringing and heavy. I was drenched in sweat, my body trembling with exhaustion. I picked up the pry bar, wedged it into the seam I'd created, and threw my entire weight against it. With a final, agonized groan of twisting metal, the rectangular section of the steel plate tore free and crashed to the floor of the closet with a deafening final clang. And then, there was a hole. A dark, jagged maw in the back of my closet. I was breathing in ragged gasps, my ears ringing, every nerve alight. I grabbed my flashlight, its beam seeming impossibly bright and steady after the chaos, and aimed it into the darkness. The air that drifted out was ancient. It smelled of cold stone, damp earth, and a profound, lingering sadness. The space within was small, no bigger than the closet I was in. The walls were not drywall, but rough, dark, original foundation stone, weeping with traces of moisture. The floor was dusty concrete. And the walls were covered in scratches. Not the frantic work of Daniel, but a different kind. Countless, overlapping fingernail marks, a testament to a long, slow, hopeless agony. In the center of the dusty floor, as if presented on an altar, sat a small, dark, metal lockbox. Martha's file. The testimonies. The proof. There was no hesitation. This was the entire purpose. I holstered my flashlight in my jacket, gripped the jagged edges of the hole I'd made, and awkwardly, painfully, began to climb through. My feet touched the dusty floor of the tomb. I was in. I pulled my flashlight free, its beam cutting through the oppressive darkness, and I shone it on the lockbox. That's when I saw it. On the rough stone wall, just above the lockbox, was a handprint. It was small and slender, but it wasn't an old, dusty print left from the past. It was dark against the pale stone. It was fresh, wet, as if someone, standing right there in the darkness, had leaned against the wall to steady themselves just a second ago. As if they were waiting for me. My heart stopped. My blood turned to ice. From the darkest corner of the small stone room, a new voice whispered, the sound impossibly close, calm, and clear. It wasn't the whisper of a child. It was the voice of a woman. And it spoke a single, chilling word. Found. Log number 21. I'm not alone. The voice, it wasn't a memory, not an echo. It was here, in this room, with me. My flashlight beam is shaking, cutting frantic, useless arcs through the oppressive darkness. I'm trying to find the corner where the voice came from, but I'm terrified of what I'll see. My back hits the cold, rough stone of the wall I just broke through, my only escape route. I'm trapped. Trapped in a tomb with the spirit of the woman whose murder started it all. And then, I see her. She doesn't rush out of the darkness. She simply coalesces. In the center of the room, the dust motes in my flashlight beam begin to swirl, gathering together, shimmering. The air grows heavy and cold. The form of a woman takes shape. She is translucent, her edges soft and glowing with a faint, silvery light, but she is unmistakably real. It is Martha Wells, exactly as she looked in the locket photo, her expression not one of anger or horror, but of infinite, profound sadness and patience, as if she has been waiting in this room, in the dark, for 50 years. Just for me. My scream dies in my throat. I am paralyzed, a rabbit in the headlights of an oncoming apparition. She doesn't speak again. She doesn't have to. She looks at me, and her sad eyes seem to see right through me, acknowledging my fear, my exhaustion, and my purpose. Then, she raises a shimmering, translucent hand. Slowly, deliberately, she points a single finger down at the metal lockbox on the floor. The message is clear. The work isn't finished. Open it. Her silent command breaks my paralysis. I scramble forward on my hands and knees, my movements clumsy with fear. The lockbox is old, its surface covered in a layer of rust and grime. A simple padlock holds it shut, far too rusted for any key. I grab the pry bar I dropped when I climbed through the wall. The sound of me forcing the tool into the lock's hasp is a shocking, violent intrusion into the sacred silence of the room. I throw my weight against it. With a sharp, ugly screech of tortured metal, the lock breaks. I kneel before the box, my breath held tight in my chest. With trembling hands, I lift the heavy lid. Inside, resting on a bed of what was once felt, is the truth. It's a small, leather-bound journal. Martha's. I open it to a random page. Her handwriting is neat, precise, the script of a professional. But the words are a catalog of horrors. October 24th, Director Gable locked Daniel M. in the quiet room today for 12 hours. His supposed infraction was starting a fight. The truth, which Lily later told me in tears, was that Daniel had stepped between Gable and her when the director was berating her for humming. This boy is not a troublemaker. He is a bodyguard. Beneath the journal are a series of crayon drawings. The children's testimonies. One shows a tall, dark, stick figure with a snarling mouth, Gable, standing over a small figure crying on a bed. Another shows a drawing of the incinerator chute, with small, stick figure hands reaching out from inside. They were telling her everything. And under the drawings, the final, damning piece of proof. A single, folded official document. A death certificate. It's for a child I'd never heard of, a boy named Samuel, dated 1965, 3 years before the fire. The cause of death is listed as accidental fall from rooftop. But in the margins, in Martha's elegant, flowing script, is a single, chilling, handwritten note. Gable was the only staff member on the roof. I found 3 children who said they heard shouting just before Samuel fell. They are too afraid to speak. My God, the fire wasn't the beginning. It was the end. Gable wasn't just an abuser. He was a serial murderer. I have it all. The proof. The story. The truth. It's here, in my hands. I slowly look up, my eyes blurry with tears, to the place where Martha's ghost stood. She is still there, a silent, sorrowful sentinel. She looks at the evidence now spread on the floor around me, and she gives a single, slow, solemn nod. Thank you. Then, she raises her hand one last time. She doesn't point at me. She doesn't point at the box. She points, her arm outstretched, directly through the solid stone wall, directly towards the adjoining apartment, towards the room where a catatonic old monster sits in a chair. Her meaning is absolute. Her final command is unspoken, but I hear it as clearly as if she had screamed it. Confront him. Log number 22. And the last. I am kneeling on the floor of a tomb, surrounded by the ghosts of the past and the proof of their pain. Martha's spectral form watches me, her command echoing not in my ears, but in my soul. Confront him. There is no more fear. There is only the grim, heavy weight of a promise that I am bound to keep. I gathered the evidence. Martha's journal, the children's crayon drawings, the death certificate of a forgotten little boy. I took the music box. These were not just objects, they were voices. And I was their chosen amplifier. I climbed back through the jagged hole in my closet, re-entering my world from theirs. I didn't bother to cover the opening. The time for hiding secrets was over. I walked out of my apartment and stood before the door to 3A. It was slightly ajar, waiting for me. The ghosts had cleared my path. I pushed the door open and stepped inside. The air was cold, stale, and thick with a silence that felt older than the building itself. And there he was, Arthur Gable, a withered husk of a man, still slumped in the armchair, his eyes open and vacant, a living monument to his own evil. I walked to the small table in front of him, and I began. I did not speak. My actions would be my testimony. I laid out the children's drawings first, a colorful tapestry of their stolen innocence and their terror. Then, I placed Samuel's death certificate on top of them. Then, I opened Martha's journal to the last, frantic entry she ever wrote. As I laid out the final piece of evidence, they appeared. Not with a rush of cold or a whisper, but as silent, shimmering forms in the gloom of the room. Lily, her sad eyes fixed on the man who had stolen her song. Daniel, his form no longer writhing with rage, but solid with a resolute, protective stillness. And Martha, her gentle face a mask of sorrowful judgment. A jury of the dead, assembled for their final verdict. Even in his catatonic state, something in Gable reacted. A flicker of an eyelid. A faint, shuddering twitch in his hands. He knew they were here. He could feel them. It was time. I took out the music box and the small, tarnished key. My hands were perfectly steady as I inserted the key and wound the mechanism. For 50 years, this box had been silent. Broken. I lifted the lid. And the music began. The melody filled the room, clear and pure and heartbreakingly sad. It was not a ghost of a sound. It was real, physical, and alive. As the first notes played, Gable's catatonia shattered. His head snapped up. His eyes, no longer vacant, widened in absolute, soul-shattering terror. He wasn't looking at me. He was looking past me, at the 3 shimmering figures who stood as my witnesses. He opened his mouth, and a sound tore from his throat, a dry, rattling, inhuman scream of a man seeing his sins given form. As he screamed, the ghosts of Martha, Daniel, and Lily did not attack. They simply stepped forward. Their translucent forms converged on his chair, passing through the physical world as if it were smoke, and flowed into him. The lights in the apartment flickered and died, plunging the room into darkness. The only light, the faint, silvery glow of the merging spirits. The only sound, the relentless, sad little song of the music box. Gable's body convulsed violently, his scream choked off in a final, wet gurgle. And then, it was over. The music box played its final note and clicked into silence. The ghostly light faded. The power in the apartment flickered back on. Arthur Gable still sat in his chair. His eyes were still open. But he was gone. The evil, the fear, the consciousness, all of it had been scoured away. All that was left was an empty, breathing shell. The ghosts had rendered their judgment. The haunting of Northwood Creek was over. The tone of the recording shifts. It is cleaner, with less ambient noise. The voice is still Ethan's, but it is calmer, more distant. Final log. It has been 6 weeks. The police received an anonymous package containing a lockbox filled with the journals and drawings of the long-lost victims of the Northwood fire. I sent them the audio files, too. All 21 of them. I called them the Paranoia Tapes. The investigation they launched was national news. The truth, all of it, finally came out. Arthur Gable, found unresponsive in his apartment, was committed to a state psychiatric hospital, where he will live out the remainder of his empty days. The bodies of Martha Wells and several other children were eventually recovered from the sealed foundation beneath the building. They were finally given a proper burial. Justice after 50 years. My apartment is quiet now. The cold spots are gone. The whispers are silent. No new files appear on my desktop. I have put the apartment up for sale. I can't stay here, but I'm not running anymore. I don't know what I was this past month. A victim, a conduit, a detective. Maybe I was just the first person in 50 years who was willing to listen. The music box sits on my desk now. Sometimes, when the house is quiet, I think I can hear a faint, happy melody coming from it. The sound of children, finally at peace. This is Ethan Hayes, signing off.